Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. How you all doing? Alan Spencer here with a kind of an interesting video I've wanted to make for a long time. I wanted to talk about the circle of fifths, and I've always been pretty fascinated with the circle of fifths and everything that it has to visually offer in the world of music. And so I should start off by saying that there's tons of videos I'm sure on YouTube that show the circle of fifths and how to make it and what it does, and I'm not going to start there. So unfortunately, even though I run the risk of alienating and isolating a lot of the viewers, I'm going to skip past all the the bare bones stuff. So I'm going to assume at this point you know that how the circle of fifths is built and how you take a perfect fifth and you go down around the circle, and all the stuff on the right side tells you how many sharps in the key, how much stuff on the left. Go down the left side, how many keys and have the flats and so on and so forth. But I'm just going to talk about some, I guess for lack of a better term, the advanced interpretation or the advanced techniques or the advanced stuff that you can know about the circle of fifths. So I just printed out here a bunch of blank charts and made some designs with it that show all the relationships that exist in the harmonies in music. And let's see, how should I start here? I guess I'll do it this way. So I just on a whim decided to kind of connect all of the different harmonies, and noticed that, and this stuff might even be on YouTube as well, I don't know, but I haven't found anything myself, but if it is, forgive me for the redundancy, but if it hasn't, then maybe I'm the first. So I said I'm going to go through and I'm going to connect all of the major seconds. So I start with C, and I just took my, my little straight edge here, went from C to D, D to E, E to F sharp, and you go around and you do the whole thing, and then you have to start again, of course, with G and do the whole thing all over with G, because the whole tone scale only has 6 notes in it, and it ends up making a shape that looks like that. This is the major seconds. And that's kind of cool. No matter what you do, you always end up with this 12-pointed star, because there's 12 half steps in an octave before the whole thing repeats over again. So when you're dealing with major seconds or minor sevenths, you end up with that neat looking star. And so I did the same thing with major thirds. If you do major thirds, then you're going to end up going from C to E, and then E to A flat, and then A flat, of course, will get you back to C. Now that makes one triangle, just like that. So you do the same thing starting on G, you make another triangle, same thing starting on D, and you make the next triangle, and the same thing starting on A, and you make that triangle, and then you're out of triangles, because then you're back to E again. And that ends up looking like that. That is a major third, or minor sixth, which we'll talk about in a second. There's only 6 stars that you're only able to end up making, because there's only 6 relationships harmonically that you can use with those 12 tones, with those 12 half steps. So I did the same thing with a major 6. If you're doing a major 6, you'll start with C and you'll end up with A. And this actually is kind of cool because it makes a square inside the circle. And A goes to F sharp. F sharp goes to E flat. E flat ends up on C. Whoops. Sorry, going kind of quick here. So you end up with that square inside the circle. You do the same thing starting with G, you make the same square, and you end up with this 12-pointed star. Kind of neat. Okay, doing fourths and fifths isn't, fourth/fifths, because it's the same inversion. It's kind of silly, because you just end up going around the circle, but it does make a 12-pointed figure. And there you go. If you do augmented fourths or diminished fifth, you're going from C straight down to F sharp, and there's no connections, which is kind of interesting in itself, since the augmented fourth and the diminished fifth relationship, or that harmony, is the most substantial in music, the most, it's the most important, I guess, if you want to talk about when we're dealing with the tension and resolve stuff that goes on in composition. So here's what a augmented fourth and diminished fifth looks like. Still a 12-pointed figure. It's not a star anymore, but nevertheless, pretty neat. And then the last option you have is the minor second or the major seventh. So you go from C down to B, or you can go, yeah, I'm just going to go backwards. C to B, B to B flat to A, and you finish all that out, and it ends up looking like that. So me personally, ever since, I don't know, middle school or high school, I've always been very fascinated. Oh, by the way, even if you don't do the circle of fifths in the traditional sense, from C to G to D to A to E, some people will take it out and they draw out the circle of fifths chromatically, and if you do you can still get the same relationships even that way. So this is C going to C sharp to D to, this one right here they're doing in C to, yeah, they're writing out just in fifths. But oddly enough, it ends up making the same shape. You're just kind of translating it a different way. But that's pretty neat. And another one that I just kind of noticed was if you want to know all of the inversions as they relate to the key, like here for example, if you just draw straight lines across, start with C on the top, F and G are inversions which connect each other, and then B flat and D are inversions, because it's major seventh, minor, or minor second, forgive me, major second, minor seventh. Next one down from C to A is a minor third, and C up to E flat is a minor third. So it's kind of like giving you just an all-around, very cool guide, just visually. And like I said, ever since I was a kid, I was very fascinated with the circle of fifths. I was also kind of a math nut, so it's just kind of spoke to me, but I've always been really amazed at the, what would you call it, the symmetry in music that can be shown geometrically. It's very cool. So, in a sense, you would say to someone, musically speaking, this is what a major second looks like. You know, if you hear this sound, I know it's going to be kind of weird, but if you hear this sound, you are listening to what that looks like. Same thing, of course, when you're dealing with major third and minor third, it's going to be a little more pleasant to the ear. So here's a major third. Geometrically, you're listening to that star. Or if you want to talk about major sixths or minor thirds, I'm even going to open up the voicing a little bit so you have, let me make sure I don't mess this up yet. So that's a diminished chord basically, but I just opened it up to make it sound cool. That sound is that star. And then if you're doing quartal or quintal harmony, then you have, and you're listening to that star, or that 12-pointed figure. And you don't need me to go through all of them, but it'd be kind of silly to go through what it would say. Well, I guess I should do the tritone. So you have, here's the tritone. And how that sounds, even though it sounds really dissonant, it's kind of more of a pure sound in the sense that there's only two notes available to pick from, and that's why the geometric figure looks so sparse as well. Maybe. And then I'm not going to do the minor second because you guys know how nasty that would sound. But these relationships in music were always awe-inspiring to me. And if someone were to ask me what is music, the only way I could really break it down, no matter however someone wishes to express themselves in whatever direction they take their music, doesn't matter. However you break it down, there's always someone who is going to be, in the best way of saying it, it's the art of manipulating and synthesizing carefully timed frequencies. That's how you break it down. And it's really cool if you want to take the time to ever look at the actual frequencies going through an oscilloscope that we use for harmony and their relationships mathematically. We'll just do an octave to make it easy. So you have a note here. You go an octave up. You're having one wave of sound that goes like this, and the other wave is literally twice as much, and there are these intersecting points that happen forever. From the moment you play both those notes, the wave that intersects after the fourth connection, that same exact connection will be happening after the 4,000th connection in the exact same spot. And if it's not, it won't sound like it's in harmony. It won't sound like it has that purity. And I think if I can find it, I did do some videos back in the day showing these actual intersections happening on an oscilloscope. And anyway, I just thought that was very, very neat ever since I was a kid. That there's not only an audible, what would we call pleasantness, an audible conviction, basically like a period at the end of that sentence. That's an octave. You know, there's a way that the music literally, I guess you would say, has a relationship with your eardrum that says you are now listening to this, and you know it with absolute certainty because not only does it sound that way, but you could show it mathematically, geometrically, and scientifically with an oscilloscope. And so, let's see, I don't know if this means anything, but I did print out, these are kind of cool things that you can look at when you're on Google. This is the same circle of fifths shown with all of those relationships and intersections. That probably looks a little confusing. With all of those different, I guess you would call them 12-pointed stars at the same time. Right now you're looking at, you know, I don't know if this is true, but they say like when you're watching TV back in the day and you'd reach a channel where it's just a bunch of snow, you know, and there's no, what I was told was that's all of the radiation, the radio frequency radiation entering your antenna at the same time. That's the picture, that's what all that radiation looks like on the screen. That's sort of what this is. This is all of music combined, culminated into one single picture. That's what it looks like. Pretty neat. Here's the same thing with, you know, the actual, this is showing all the different relationships, you know, harmonic relationships. This is showing all the actual notes. Same thing though. Very cool. This is not related to the circle of fifths. Well, I guess it sort of is. This is one thing that's always driven me nuts. I wish they would have thought about this before, but if they would have, and I know this is unrelated, but it's still kind of neat to think about. The grand staff, as you know, treble clef and bass clef, they decided to come up with middle C, at least this is what we're told, by splitting the grand staff in half, sticking the note there, we're going to say that's the middle C. So if you go up from middle C, you're going to end up with D, and if you go down from middle C, you'll end up with B, thereby giving this eternal curse to everyone who learns piano or learns an instrument in one clef and can't read in the other clef, because all the notes in the bass clef are different than the treble clef, at least most of them. If they would have made it middle B instead, then you wouldn't have had this issue. So if we had middle B like that and decided to split the grand staff in the middle with the note B, if you go up from B, you'll have C just like you normally do. Go up again, you'll have D just like we normally do. But if you're in bass clef and you had B as the middle, and you go down from B, you'll have A just like you have in A in the treble clef. We would have had that in the bass clef as well, and then down to G just like you have up here. So, boy, that sure would have been nice. And it's kind of a futile discussion though, because I know there's no way in hell they're going to go back and change all of the music over the last few, 1,000 years or so of, Western civilization, music. So, boy, that would have been nice though. We would have eliminated a lot of headaches. So anyway, that is kind of what I just thought that was pretty cool with the circle of fifths, and that not only can you use it I think it's absolutely amazing the symmetry that exists in music geometrically, and there obviously has to be some kind of, it has to be related somehow with the way the world runs and the way the world functions, especially if you're talking about mathematically. But, I mean, I'm not going to go as far as say there's some kind of spiritual connection. I don't think that's the case. But it is very cool. Very cool indeed. So, whatever that's worth, I thought that might be interesting to watch. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you much.